Hello everyone, this is Dan and welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to show you how to restore a flooded vehicle. But before we get started, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, you can press the subscribe button so you don't miss any interesting videos. Now this car came from Florida. It ended up at the auction in the result of Hurricane Irma. Now it is a 2017 Cadillac ATS with only 2,000 miles. And I did buy this for my wife just so we can upgrade her from her current Cadillac. Now, the interesting part about this and the lucky thing is it only had about 6 inches of water in it versus this thing swimming in water, which there's a lot more complications. But the bad part is that it's salt water because it came from Florida and is really close to the ocean. So that makes things a lot more difficult to restore. But let's get to it and we're gonna show you exactly what we're gonna do. Well, technically, there's no right or wrong way to go about to restore a flooded vehicle due to the fact that each vehicle has its own unique situation. You can have one vehicle that was flooded over the roof. That means it was completely submerged in water, and that can cause all sorts of complications, especially if it's a high-end vehicle and it has a lot of electrical components inside. And then you can have vehicles that were flooded at different various points, so they had different amounts of water in it. And that's going to determine how much work you're going to have to put into the car, and it's going to determine how much electrical components you're going to either have to fix or replace. Okay? Now this video is specifically for this vehicle and the amount of water it had. So please don't use this information to try to restore a car that was completely swimming in water somewhere in the ocean, because you're gonna have to take completely different measures if you can even restore it. So this car did have about 6 inches of water. And usually you can tell by the water line that's left over from the residue of the water. Depending if it was dirty water or fresh water or salt water, you're always gonna get a different way of looking at it. Now, it was right under the seat switches, so in this case we're pretty lucky, but there's other situations where you have a lot less water and you have to do a lot less work. Another thing you can do is try to see if the engine turns freely. And the way you can do that is you take a wrench with a socket and you put it on the harmonic balancer, and there's other ways to do it, like you can take off the starter and actually use a crowbar to move it back and forth. But the easiest way so far that I've seen is just to put a wrench on it and play with it back and forth. In this case, this one was fine because it had no water, but if your motor is seized up, it's going to be locked. And you could just play with it back and forth, or you can take off the spark plugs and put some Marvel mystery oil inside and let it soak for a few days. Another thing that I want to mention before we're going to continue on removing all the interior out of the car is the starter. It's very common that the starters do not work since they are located for the most part on vehicles on the lower part of the motor. And when they get water in them, they do seize up. But before you go and replacing your starter, you're going to want to make sure you check the signal that's coming from your computer while you're trying to start your car. But before you do that, you're going to definitely make sure that all your components in your car is ready to be started, so you don't burn any other electrical components that might have water in them that you did not clean out. Alright, so we took everything apart from the interior, and I'm just going to show you really quick what we have here. So these are the seats. These are 2 front seats that came out. You have just a bunch of parts right here, some dash trim, some under the dash. This is just over the door. You got the center console. This is also part of the center console. More dash. We got the rug mats, and these are the carpets. We have one rear, one in the left, one in the right. We have more plastic pieces, carpets, and this is the rear seat. Okay, now this is how it looks inside when we take out all the carpets, all the plastics. Okay, let me just turn off that light. So luckily, and very luckily with this car, I'm very surprised, since the water was only about, you know, up to here. The airbag module did not get wet. All these other small connectors and computers did not get wet. And I'll show you over here. This is underneath the dash. Okay, and let me put the light on for you. Now we have all those computers. They're hanging down because I took them out for the reason of getting to those two plugs. Now the only thing that is gonna need to be fixed here is this. And I believe, I mean, you might look at it and think this is a mess, but this is the only thing. There's one plug like this, okay? And it got all corroded on this, well, first of all, I couldn't even take this apart. So I am going to be cutting each wire and reconnected them to their original other half on the other side. The other side is the same thing. It's over there. I don't know if you can see that. It's right in the corner. So pretty much we only have out of all this area, we only have two big main wire harnesses that just need to be put together. Now if there was computers on the ground, like most cars do have them, we'd have a problem. We'd be replacing or fixing or taking apart the computers. But in this case, literally, this is the first time that this happened for me, where there's nothing inside of computers that got damaged. It's only a couple harnesses. So we're gonna clean everything here now, because now there's salt everywhere. So you want to wash that, get the salt out of there. So over the years, you're not gonna have any rust or corrosion on anything else. And we're gonna be cleaning plugs like this. This plug right here, you can see it started corroding. So we got to clean that out really good. Clean little plugs like this. There's not much even to clean here on this one, but mainly these two. So yeah, after we clean all the plugs, wash all the salt out from here, we're gonna go and have bring the carpets to be cleaned, professionally cleaned, and then just put everything right back together after we fix all the wires that we soldered together. Hey guys, I wanted to add one more thing here while everything is open. Now I did a little bit more things than what I showed you previously. I unwrapped all the wiring harnesses, and I did that for one reason. Is my friend suggested that it's a very good idea to check, because some car manufacturers would splice wires together in between the wiring harness. So the wiring harness did not have a wire going from one end to the other, but in the middle they'd make a T, a three-way adapter, and they'd just splice them together. So he had a scenario on his Audi, okay, and what happened is on his Audi, he did the whole car, everything was working, except there's a few other things that didn't work, and he couldn't figure out why. He checked all the electrical parts, but what happened is, like, see, this is a wiring harness, okay, that I took apart. Now this had a bunch of tape. If you remember a few minutes back in the video, I was showing you this had all the plastics on it, and it was all organized. So I took it all apart, and so this is the wire splice that they did right in the middle of the wiring harness. So now if you have water, salt water in between here, this is gonna corrode if this is not a good seal. Now this one looks very, very good. It looks like it's almost like glued on both sides, okay? But what, so anyway, I ended up taking that advice. I figured, you know what, why take the chance? Might as well just, you know, take apart all the wiring harness, and it takes a long time. As you can see, there's wires everywhere. There's just a crap load of wires, okay? And you have to, you know, when I was cleaning them and wiggling water between them and everything, just to get the salt off of them that was left after the water drained and dried. But because I did that, I'll show you, this is a wire I found. This is one, and then here's the second part of it. And I was washing it, I was taking off the tape, and I'm like, huh, why is this thing laying here? It just doesn't look like it belongs anywhere. It doesn't even look like it really connected, but I guess it corroded. The copper wire corroded, and because this is a green wire, the copper turned green when it corroded, so it didn't even look, it looked like the manufacturer actually just clipped it, and it was to nowhere. But then when I looked, there was a spot where it actually came off. So this is a three-way. It has a 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, it's a good thing that I did listen to him, and I suggest for you guys to do, if you have dealing with salt water, you definitely need to do that. If you're not dealing with salt water, you just got to check your electrical components, make sure there's no water in them. And yeah, so we took a few more other things off, and now we're gonna try to wrap this stuff up as best as possible and start working on those two connections.